Joe have been baking sourdough bread for a long time now. I'm always excited to see that my loaf turns out really well. And this is cold bulk fermenting. I did this yesterday. I had it mixed and then I placed it in the fridge. And today I just brought it out, shaped it, and I baked it. So 2 loaves, one is still in the oven, but I'm just excited how this looks. Sometimes sourdough can be very unpredictable, even if you've been doing it for a while. So it's always still an exciting feeling every time I bake it. Yeah. So we'll see when the other one comes out. Hi, and if you're new here, I am Shim. Sourdough baking is a rewarding experience, but it does come with its fair challenges. I am sharing with you 5 things I wish I knew before I started as a clueless beginner. And I am starting with number 1. No one starts as a professional. I gave myself plenty of grace, and now grace is rewarding me through my experiences. My aim is not to make you an expert after one video, and by no means am I a professional, but just a passionate home baker who wants to inspire you to start your own sourdough journey with clues and tips. I actually baked my first sourdough bread in 2017, and I was so proud of having a starter that could actually make bread after so many failed attempts. Making and building an active starter takes time, patience, and 2 other ingredients: whole grain flour and good water. Once I merged these 4 items together, I started seeing bubbles, then growth. In my very first trial for a starter, I used only all-purpose flour, and that was a dead end for me. Then I found a lady on YouTube. Unfortunately, I can't remember her name. She mixed her own flours with whole grain flour. I tried it and it worked, but at the time I didn't know why. A little research showed me that whole grains contain naturally occurring wild yeast and nutrients, leading to a faster and more active fermentation. And sourdough starter is a culture of microorganisms containing a stable blend of wild yeast and suitable lactic acid bacteria. That's why it's called natural fermentation. I did toss a few starters in the making, but I did not give up because I could only see the learning process and I'm not a quitter. After making my first bread, I was left with a starter. To be honest, I wasted a lot of flour in the beginning as I had no idea what to do with all that discard. You cannot stop discard, but you can control it. So I started feeding and maintaining my mother starter in small ratios in order not to waste any more flour. Small feeding ratios gave me control over what quantity I discarded, and the stored little discard I used to flavor my cakes, pancakes, waffles. I also use discards to make bread. Nothing goes to waste. Feed a freshly fed starter for at least 7 weeks before placing in the fridge. This one took me a long time to understand how important that is. My previous mother starters quickly got placed in the fridge after they were active because it was easier that way. A 2-week-old active starter can bake bread, but a strong active starter will consistently bake good and delicious bread. I tried not to put my current mother starter in the fridge after I made it active for almost 5 months. I stored her on my counter and I fed her twice daily. For the first time, I have a no-fuss starter. She gives me consistent baking results, and over time, I've built a rhythm with my mother starter. Keep the mother starter separate.
As a beginner, I would feed my mother starter every starter mix recipe for every bake I did instead of taking out what was needed for the starter mix and leaving my mother starter alone. I can assure you I was left with a fussy starter and the mother in it gone. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I took the path of change. Now my mother starter gets a consistent feeding ratio. This way I save my starter and hard work. Bulk ferment is not a perfect set. It can be adjusted to keep the first proof in check. I read an online post which stated to avoid overproofing sourdough, the bulk ferment time can be reduced down into the reps. I live in a hot, humid climate in Nigeria, so that made a lot of sense. Even when I follow a recipe, I still listen to my fermenting dough. I had a subscriber recently comment how she changed the bulk ferment time in my recipe by increasing it by a couple of hours because she lives in a cold region, and it worked for her. Cold bulk fermenting before shaping. I thought shaping and placing the dough in the fridge was the only way to retard sourdough until I tried a no-knead recipe that made me do a cold ferment before shaping. I got better hydration, the crumb was beautiful, plus a cold sourdough is easier to handle and shape.
And this never gets old for me. This is always like the first look, the first bake, the first 20 minutes on cover. So this is like seeing what the bread looks like. Like, did it do well? Did it do bad? Wow. Yep, so I put it back for another 20 minutes.
Okay, I love sourdough, you love sourdough, but can we talk about the elephant in the room? Slicing sourdough. I have learned so far that sourdough is a living organism that relies on its environment and me to stay active. So the key thing is patience while on this sourdough journey. And if you've stayed with me this far, thank you. Leave one thing in the comments below you wish you knew before you started sourdough. Or if you have not started, you want to know before starting. I recently got a sourdough book to learn more about sourdough baking. I always want to learn and do better. I look forward to trying a few of the recipes here. I intend to share my first recipe trial from the book with you.